So I took the Staten Island ferry from Manhattan, got on a bus, and then I was like sitting on the bus. And then like I was like on the bus, like going through Staten Island, and like I was sitting there and I was like, I'm on a bus like in Staten Island, and deep down like that, like I realized there, like I am clearly resisting this to a degree that like I haven't acknowledged. And then so I got off the bus, like on the way to the testing site. I stopped by, like there's a mall in Staten Island. We got off and had some Panda Express, and I sat there and like yeah, I'm like not doing this.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
law school is not for me. Got on the bus going back, and then felt much better on the way back.
Hey everyone, Jessica here. I'm really excited for today. Today we have Chris Goodmacher here. For those of you guys who don't know, Chris is my co-founder here at Uprise. And as we've been working on Uprise together, have really gotten the chance to, really know each other's stories a lot better. And so was working really, really hard to get Chris to come on this YouTube channel with us, in particular because I think he has an incredible story. Growing up with a single mom to getting multiple graduate degrees, to then working at a hedge fund, second employee as a startup that is now a unicorn, and even along this entire journey has, written his own book. And so Chris, thank you so much for coming here today. Really excited to talk more about your story, to talk more about personal finances, and a little bit about your thoughts in terms of starting Uprise as well.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wait, is that a was that a real happy to be here, or was this
I'm very happy to be here.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, this is great.
Awesome. So I know I just ran through a bunch of what I understand about your story, but it would be really great to hear it from you. If you could talk a little bit about, at the beginning, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So the main thing was I wanted to be a paleontologist. I really loved dinosaurs when I was a kid. So that's what I wanted to do. And eventually I realized that later on in life that the work was mainly either doing research in like a dusty university, or like outside in like the hot sun in a tent. Also dusty. So like it wasn't as glamorous as I envisioned. The second plan after paleontology was being a lawyer.
So similar.
Like mainly on the encouragement of my mom. She when you're a parent, you just want your child to have like a really nice, stable life. I think that's why you see parents like often push their children into like stable certified professions, doctor, lawyer, things like that.
Yeah.
So my mom was no different, and she encouraged me to be a lawyer. So I did the internship, and then I saw like what the day-to-day of big law was like. Didn't feel quite right, but I kind of stuck with it still, stuck with the idea. I kept taking the LSATs, and I did really well on the practice test, but I didn't do well on like the actual day of tests. And then I kept pushing off like law school by like doing different things, by getting graduate degrees, by working in finance. Even when I was in finance, like the plan was still, okay,
really?
someday law school. So like the idea died really hard. Like I think like it eventually like really died when like I was about to take the LSATs for the third time. I got on a I kept procrastinating about it. That was a big clue for me. It was I was really kind of like sticking with this idea, but honestly like deep down like resisting it.
Yeah.
So I would always sign up for the LSATs at like the last possible date, and then the very last time I signed up for the LSATs, because I signed up at the last possible date, the session was in Staten Island. Like I couldn't find one in Manhattan or Brooklyn or anything like that.
Right.
So like a couple days before the test, what you try to do is like you scope out the testing site to make sure there's no surprises. So I took the Staten Island ferry from Manhattan, got on a bus, and then I was like sitting on the bus. And then like I was like on the bus, like going through Staten Island, and like I was sitting there, and I was like, I'm on a bus like in Staten Island, and deep down like that, like I realized there, like I am clearly resisting this to a degree that like I haven't acknowledged. And then so I got off the bus, like on the way to the testing site. I stopped by, like there's a mall in Staten Island. We got off and had some Panda Express, and I sat there and yeah, I'm like not doing that.
Yeah.
Law school is not for me. Got on the bus going back, and then felt much better on the way back. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it sometimes takes it takes like some time before you get to that clarity, right? And really understanding like how you feel, even if you like logically don't get it yet.
Like it can be really hard. Like I think acknowledging tough truths quickly can be like one of life's biggest skills.
Yeah, maybe before we keep going, maybe you could talk a little bit about your early money story, like very beginning, first bank account. Did you ever have any conversations with your mom about personal finances or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think my mom did a fantastic job of making sure I never felt like we didn't have money, and we never felt wanting for things, even though like money was tight. She was a single mom. Like unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was like 6 or 7, and she didn't remarry, so she raised me like by herself in Silicon Valley, which is an expensive place.
Right.
So like I'm like endlessly grateful for the fact like somehow miraculously she was able to shield me from feeling like we were poor or anything like that. And like my mom did her best. Like she wasn't that knowledgeable about money, but she knew it was important. So like I remember when in high school she gave me a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad, the Robert Kiyosaki book.
Yeah.
Like with a kind of a like, okay, like money's important, I like maybe you can figure this out. And then she like kind of gave me a copy of the book. And so growing up, like I felt like at high school on, like after I left, like I kind of gradually realized like figuring out money is a very valuable thing, basically.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a master's in finance, and I was surprised at the degree to which like that didn't help me as much as I thought it would in terms of understanding my own personal finances. So there was a lot of statistics and like valuing options and things like that, but a lot less about, okay, like what do I actually do with my money on a day-to-day basis. So like, yeah, like it's been a gradual journey. It's like it's been a lot of ups and downs, but it's like stuck with me, like how complicated it is and how important it is. And ultimately that's why we're doing this.
Right. Okay, so while you were still pursuing law school, you had gone and gotten degrees at LSE and at Oxford?
Oxford in financial economics.
Gotcha. And then with those degrees, you went and joined a hedge fund.
Yeah, that's right. I joined the hedge fund right after I finished my finance master's degree.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I think the most interesting thing about you is that, you've tried so many different things. And when you try something, you really go all in.
Yeah, like I think that's fair. I think that's true. Like, yeah, when like I try something, like I go hard. Basically. So yeah, like a lot of kids like they'll do an investment banking job or something like that. But like me, like what? I'm gonna do the master's in finance. I'm not just gonna get an MBA. I'm gonna get a master's in finance, and then I'm going to like even like not be at a bank. I'm gonna go like straight to the hedge fund.
That's right.
Go straight to the deep end, and then kind of a similar thing when I ended up joining the startup world too.
Yeah. Can we talk more about that too? Like, how did you make that transition from hedge fund to the tech world? And I think this is also what you were saying in between. During that transition period, you had also written your own book.
Yeah, so I was trying to so I realized the law school dream like dimmed away, and I knew that finance wasn't quite for me, and so it was hard. Like I was really trying to figure out, okay, then what is for me? What is the thing for me? And I was searching. There was a lot of searching around, a lot of introspection, and then one of the things I did was I read at the time it just kind of come out the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Really great book, and it really made me think about things differently. Like instead of thinking about like getting a job, quote unquote, or something like that, it was just literally about it forced me to reframe my thought in terms of like not just like finding an occupation, but like how do I want to spend my life. So I read that book, and then like the main idea in the book is that you can come up with there are ways to like create your ideal lifestyle by like building like a small business that kind of runs itself. It's one of the core concepts in the book. So, and I'm like married that, like reading that and the ideas in the book with this idea that I had for a long time of like wanting to write so like I feel like it's something like a lot of like, you know, kids like in the liberal arts anyway, like you're like, someday I'll write a book.
No, but okay.
Like so for me anyway, that was a thing. Like maybe I'm like overgeneralizing to like other people, but like I wanted to write a book someday. I thought that would be a cool thing to do. So both my friend and I transferred. Both of us met at the same school and then ended up transferring to different schools. Like I went to Dartmouth, she went to Stanford. So, and then after going through that process, we talked to each other and thought, hey, it might be fun to like write a book together explaining this process, because there weren't many resources out there when we were trying to transfer. So we started shopping around the idea of a book. We got semi-far with a potential publisher, but then they told us what the royalties would be, and they were shockingly low. And I had been reading the 4-Hour Workweek thing, and I kind of convinced my friend, like, let's just self-publish this thing. Let's write it ourselves. We'll have like full control over everything, the pricing, how we market it. We'll learn a ton. It'll be more fun. We'll probably make more money too, actually. So that's what we did. So this was while I was working in finance, like on the side. We wrote the book together, built the website for it, and like I found myself like tremendously more interested in the process of like creating this thing out, like deciding like what the title is going to be, the design of the cover, how we price it, how we sell it to people. Like I found all of that like just way more interesting than my day to day, where I felt like it's a very like it is also interesting stuff, but I did feel like day to day like I was kind of moving money around from one place to another. This book side project, I felt like I was creating something new in the world, and that was like tremendously satisfying to me. So like after like creating the book, then I realized, okay, like this is what I want to do. Like I want to build, and so left the hedge fund world and tried to like go in on building a business like around, and like a bunch of adjacent ideas. Like there was something like becoming an ebook publisher and just publishing like other people's books, and there were also ideas that I worked on that were around creating a community for transfer students, resources for transfer students. There's millions of transfer students out there actually, and like there's a dearth of resources for them, so maybe that was an option too. And like ended up like actually like made some money, but after a while it was clear like it wasn't like really going to take off the way that I wanted it to. And the idea that I had was, okay, like I want to like take a step back, and I want to like, what I had been doing was kind of being very scrappy and like doing things like customizing WordPress themes and things like that. But what I wanted to do was take a step back and then really learn how to build things like that are scalable, like from scratch, from the ground up, the right way. So I decided that I really wanted to learn how to be a software engineer. I wanted to like learn to be like to build things from scratch that can scale, right, like that. So I ended up joining General Assembly's coding boot camp. It was like their first. They had like a beta of it, but like it was the first real iteration of it.
Cool. So then you joined Justworks coming out of boot camp.
Yes. Like again, like very luckily. So at the end of the boot camp, they have a science fair where you you kind of stand there and present your final projects. And then different companies, representatives of different companies come in and they walk around and they talk to you, and hopefully you get hired by one of them. And very luckily, the CEO, the founder of Justworks had just left. Like he was at Etsy before. I think he had just left. He was looking for his first couple engineers, and he ended up hiring like one of my close friends from General Assembly. And then that friend said basically like you should also hire my friend Chris, and that's how I ended up at Justworks.
Yeah. So what was that like? You know, being a second employee at a super early stage startup. Is this something that you would recommend to people?
Like absolutely. So I think I wanted to like coming out of the boot camp, I actually didn't know how employable I would be. Coding boot camps were a very new thing back then, so it was unclear what the demand for our skills would be, like if we were skilled enough coming out of the boot camp to be hireable. But I just knew like I wanted to do it, and I had to learn how to build things regardless of like the outcome by the end of the boot. And I think that the newness of it attracted a lot of like really passionate people. So like my classmates were really great. Like we still stay in touch to this day. A lot of them like super successful. So coming out of the boot camp, like it wasn't clear like the world was like wide open, and like it was unclear what would happen. But I just knew I wanted to learn how to build a startup from the ground up. I would get to work with my friend, one of my closest friends coming out of the boot camp. I would get to learn from this guy, Isaac, who previously founded a company, was a software engineer at Amazon, product manager at Amazon. So he seemed like a fantastic person to learn from. Like the other couple people I met on the team were really, really, really great people. So yeah, it was really exciting to like sit there day one, like at this little nonprofit co-working space in Soho and be a software engineer at the earliest possible stages of startup. It was like extremely, extremely exciting.
Yeah. And then you ended up, I think, there in total 7 years or something like that.
7 years.
Yeah. Maybe really quickly about that journey and like how that brought you to starting your own thing.
Yeah, so like was luckily there for 7 years. They kept me there for some reason. Like did software engineering for like the first couple of years. Moved into product, which was awesome that they trusted me with that. And then got to learn the ropes from in particular my boss for like most of the 7 years, Camila. She's still the head of product there. Like very lucky to learn from her, and I got to like experience crazy hyper growth. Like by the time I left, we were like 600-ish people. So like from like 5 people to 600.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like learned a ton, and also got to work on kind of everything, which was amazing. And that's one of the great things about working in a startup is like there's so much work that needs to be done. And generally, if you raise your hand and say I want to do that, like there's of course the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So was there for 7 years, product, and then toward the end worked on growth strategy stuff, which was awesome. And then, but like by the end of the 7 years, like really felt like when I joined Justworks initially, like I thought I'd be there for a couple of years and then I would go off and try and start something of my own. But like it was such a great group of people, like the product was great that like I stuck around. But like toward the end of the 7th year, like really started thinking like, hey, like, you know, you're not getting any younger. Like, like you've had an amazing run here, but maybe think about trying something new. Try building that thing that you wanted to. Try building that startup that you always wanted to build from scratch. Yeah.
Cool. So we've talked a lot about career now. For you, you know, it's been, an incredible journey of sort of getting to clarity on what it is that you like to do, and even, figuring out what it is that you want to do next, sort of at each stage. Any tips for people who are earlier in their careers, how they should be thinking about approaching this?
Yeah. So I think everyone's a little different. So I think everyone needs to hear whatever advice I have may not be applied to you. Different people need to hear different things. I think often advice is like these are the lottery numbers that worked for me. So that's what I would tell myself earlier is don't chase credentials. Just try to think really hard about what actually excites you, what you enjoy doing, and the intersection of that with what you're good at too. And just do that. And the money will come, the success will come. And I think the greatest superpower in the world is just knowing what you want to do. If you can decide what you want to do, I want to build X or I want to create Y, and just focus on that, that's something that so few people have the ability to do.
Oh man, but it's so hard to have, that kind of pressure to sort of really figure out for the long term that, hey, I'm meant to be doing this for the rest of my life.
That's also why it's so rewarding. And if you focus on that question versus a certificate or a particular role or title, then the more you work at something, the better you get at it, generally. So if you work on finding out what is the thing that you want to do with your life and then getting good at that, that's time much better spent, even though like there will be like ups and downs for sure still. That's time much better spent than like chasing after a credential or a title.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about personal finances. We've talked a lot about career. How has personal finances played into, this entire career story that you've just been talking about?
It's been a rocky road, I think, and I hope like has been and continues to be a lot of like unnecessary worry about money, and if there's anything that we can solve for people, really, I would hope it's that to be able to provide clarity and direction, because there's a lot of like it's just numbers at the end of the day. So if you can provide that kind of clarity to people and prevent them from like spending unnecessary time like having vague thoughts and worrying about their situation, then wow, what a great thing. So yeah, like a lot of confusion, a lot of ups and downs. So like working at the hedge fund, like very well compensated, had a bunch of money there, didn't know what to do with it. So, and then burned through a lot of that cash trying to start the business, and then it was a big risk, like going into the boot camp when like the boot camp is like full time at that time, 9 weeks.
Right. Different
programs last different amounts of time now, but 9 weeks full time, no salary or anything like that. So that was tricky. And then when I started out at Justworks, was paid, thankfully, they were generous on the equity side, but when you're starting out a startup, you're pretty low on the salary side generally, especially if you're very early. So yeah, didn't make a lot of money then, and then because I needed to have money coming in too, was very careful and frugal about my finances. Also, and I don't recommend this necessarily, but while being employee and engineer number 2, also taught classes at General Assembly on the side, and then took one little freelance gig, built the website for the New Yorker Festival. So a lot of hustling during those years. Yeah. But then gradually, as the startup got successful, pay went up, it got very comfortable. And then as the startup got really successful, then I started spending way too much money. So that was kind of a roller coaster ride in itself, to be to see both the very beginning and the frugal parts. Yeah. And then for me, watching the value of my equity go up and my salary go up as well. And then I kind of went in the opposite direction. I was YOLO, I have sure. one life, yes. I'm only going to be this young for so long. Let me spend, let me really enjoy myself. So I upgraded my apartment. I traveled a bunch. I had a ton of fun. But then reached this kind of opposite point where I, despite all the success and all the money, actually was starting to kind of run low on cash again. And then figured out that situation, sold a little bit of stock. And then now I was back up again. And now, I feel I'm just starting to hit a really good steady state, but this is my late 30s. Yeah. So a lot of ups and downs, a lot of ups and downs.
So it'd be great to talk more about your personal finances now. How do your personal finances look now? How is your portfolio allocated? How has that sort of that evolved based on all of your learning sort of throughout that journey?
So the current picture is, it's interesting because on the one hand, if you look at my financial picture right now, if you count the Justworks equity that I own, I'm doing fantastic. If you don't count it, then I'm doing not great, okay for a person my age, I think, living in the Bay Area. Yeah, so it's an interesting mental struggle a little bit. Because if I look at my finances one way, I'm on top of the world. If I look at my finances another way, kind of the opposite. The majority of it is Justworks stock, if you look at my net worth. And then I'm pretty heavy in cash right now because we're starting a business, and that cash cushion is helpful to make ends meet while we do not pay ourselves much at all. Right. So I have about 175 in cash right now. And then like I've got about 80K in retirement funds, which is like I think like around the average for someone my age. Like I definitely could have put more into my retirement accounts for sure. And then about 30K in alternative investments or like a little bit in Robinhood, and then some crypto, and then also a few small angel investments as well. So like that's kind of the overall picture of my finances right now.
Appreciate you sharing the details, especially because like, at Uprise, like we really care about like transparency, and I think that, hey, through transparency, we can actually all meaningfully make everybody better off this way.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing. Any tips, anything that you would do differently, anything that you have learned about personal finances along this journey?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, the big thing that I would tell a younger version of myself is to like if you're joining a startup very early on, like make sure you understand how stock options work. I feel like I could have understood that a little bit better going into it, like understanding how to value them and when to exercise or not and how much to exercise. And obviously, like filing an 83B election, which is still this kind of strange, opaque thing that is poorly understood by the vast majority of people.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the YouTube channel. I'm glad we could make this happen. And yeah. Well, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.